Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, May 23rd Select Board meeting for the Berlin Select Board, because I didn't say Berlin in the first part. I had to say it in the second part. Let me find the disclaimer here. I called the meeting to order. It is, not officially 7 o'clock. So maybe I just hold on 10 more seconds until it actually says 7 o'clock on my clock, and then I can call it to order. I'm just jumping the gun.
Oh, Peg used to read the disclaimer stuff and then burn that time.
Sure, I will burn that time by reading the disclaimer stuff. Meetings of the Berlin Select Board are generally recorded for transmission on both the Berlin Cable Access Channel and YouTube. Your voice, your image, and or telephone number may be recorded. It is now 7 o'clock, so I will now call the meeting to order. Our first thing is approval of the minutes. May 16th open session.
And I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll second.
Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, let's call the roll vote. Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
Stone eye.
Correspondence. Without the TA here, there are a couple of items in the correspondence folder. One is to Berlin Auto Parts, just reminding them some of the changes that were made in the license that we renewed. I had them all up and I looked at them earlier. Now I have to be reminded again. There's a ZBA is doing their meeting on June 8th about the signs that are going in front of the Berlin Memorial School. And we've already talked about that the Energy Committee won't have a quorum as of June 1st. I'm gonna do this that you did, Beck. General public comments. If there are any comments, people can raise their hands in the audience. There's not a lot of people in the audience, and one of them is our next presenter. So let's bring the Chief Shartner up to the front, and we can jump into general department updates. If you've noticed, one of the things I've done on the agendas is for department head updates, not put necessarily a time certain on them that allows us to just jump into them a little earlier if necessary. I think anytime we're meeting with any other board or committee or outside elected official, we're more likely to do something that's time certain. But for department heads, it gives us that 5 or 7 minute flexibility to jump into them a little bit sooner. Welcome, Chief Shartner.
Oh, thank you for having me. Well, good to see everybody. So in the month of April, the department handled 1,428 calls for service, 12 cases including criminal charges, 18 motor vehicle crashes with 5 reported to have injuries involved, 116 motor vehicle stops were conducted, and 106 citations were issued. As you'll see, Officer Plana and Officer Goulding both attended training last month, dealing primarily with youth mental health, which is obviously at the forefront of our mission, to be there for people. We had the unfortunate issue of having 2 overdoses last month. One was fatal, one was not. The second one was turned over to Victoria to help us hopefully get that person on their road to recovery. Drug Task Force did a couple of raids. I put the stats up there for you. Officer Andre was activated twice through SEMLEX, through the SWAT team, and did his monthly training every Wednesday as well. And one of the most important things, the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee stop signs were installed at the intersection of Kyra and Highland Street. Stop sign was added at the end of Peach Hill Road with a left turn yield sign installed on Randall Road prior to Peach Hill. This past meeting, a sign request for a stop sign was approved by the members for Coburn Road at Randall Road, and I do believe I sent you the sign request form.
Are there questions or comments from other folks?
I can't think of anything.
Go for it.
Yeah, so Eric, I unfortunately I had to bounce last week on the CPC call. I wanted to stay, but had to go. So I just moved those questions to another page, knowing that you were coming tonight. So I know that 38,000 was contingently approved by CPC for you based on you getting the paperwork in. A couple of questions on the antennas, which I know are antennae. Are they going to be compatible with whatever you plan on doing in the future, or is it?
Yeah, no, all the antenna, we're not changing bandwidths, we're not changing anything. Those antennas are like putting tires on a car. You can put them on one car, they can go on another car. You know, it's pretty much, it's not a one size fits all, but you know, we're obviously building a infrastructure that needs to go together.
Throughout the presentation, Louis, I think was his name. He kept talking about like 14-year-old batteries and cabinets that, you know, unfortunately didn't hold up to New England weather. So I guess I was just curious about where's the ongoing maintenance for items like that, you know, a battery like a battery in a car, like a battery in a lawnmower is going to die after a couple of years. And with the heat and the cold in New England, well, things are going to rust and break. So talk to us a little bit about the maintenance that you're ongoing doing to make sure that we avoid items like that in the future.
Yeah, so you know, the batteries should have been on a normal routine, like every 3 to 5 years. I'm not sure how they got to the age of 14, but not sure on that. The cabinets that we originally bought were within budget, and obviously you saw what happened when we had those cabinets. You know, they don't cool in the summertime because the fans have exploded inside of them. But that's all part of obviously the new radio system is to buy the housing equipment that's appropriate for our radios so we can get the best life out of them. You know, it's like anything. If it's not air conditioned or heated, the life goes down dramatically.
Yeah. So on the cost, and again, apologies if I've missed this somewhere in a conversation, very well could have happened. The $300,000 that Chief Galvin was successful in getting from NRP, is that being used towards communications? Has that been used somewhere and I just totally slept through that conversation, or what are you guys doing with that?
Well, I think a lot of us slept through because I didn't realize it when I took over that we had that money sitting aside for the last couple of years.
Okay.
So it was $350,000 initial seed money that was given by NRP, so they didn't have to put BDAs in every building, which would have cost them $900,000 for construction costs on their units. So we settled for apparently $350,000 in lieu of that, putting $550,000 in NRP's pocket. We've used $6,000 of that money buying a mobile repeater, which is housed in the fire department, the new Car 3, which basically gives us communications. If we don't have communications, we bring Car 3 there, we turn the repeater on, and it gives us like a mobile repeater. So we still have $344,000 in that account. You know, my goal is to get these antennas up, and I'm working with Ann and the Regional Communications Center to get a regional radio system for at least Berlin, Harvard, and Lancaster. I have been in communication with those two chiefs, and they're on board going regional. So we're going to try to go for a grant. So my hope is that by the time we get the antennas installed, we're going to have $300,000 sitting in an account that's going to buy us radios and portables for quite a few years without hitting the tax base. But then I'd like to have that $300,000 in the account in case we need a matching fund for the grant as well. So there's a lot of things. I mean, as desperately as we need the radios now, we at least need to try the antennas. Through the testing, they're pretty certain. The antennas are a 1/2-inch cable covered in fiberglass. Well, the UV rays have destroyed that, the fiberglass coating, and they think that once they turn 5G on, the 5G is penetrating our cable, which is giving us the noise on our radio, so we can't hear efficiently. I mean, you can hear, but it's like there's a constant noise in the background. And, you know, a lot of times we have to ask twice, you know, where we're going, what the call is, whatnot. So my hope is that getting these antennas ordered, which I actually got a couple more vendors today, so I can get three quotes on it. It's still a 12-week outlook, 12 to 16-week outlook to get those installed, or actually then installed. So my hope is that will get us through the grant process, and we'll know whether or not if we have money to spend, or if we do have to spend money, or is the grant going to pay for the entire system.
Are you talking to Motorola? Because it's like I see their commercials come up. I mean, they are a communications person. I know that the presentation was only from one vendor, and yeah, it would be nice to see what other people
there's,
are talking about.
Yeah, I have one other quote that I can send you, but it's a couple years old. I asked the company to update the prices.
Yep.
Because the prices are definitely going to be way off from what they were 2 years ago. But we have three companies, and one of the companies does supply Motorola. The other two companies have different name brands. Bottom line is they all do the same thing, and they all have the same shelf life. If you could convince me that one company had a longer shelf life, I'd definitely go for it. But right now, reading all the statistics on the different radios, they all seem to have between a 10 and 14-year lifespan.
Yeah, Eric, as one who just got an oil tank replaced and, a well pump replaced, that in the days of old, they would last forever. Now, every vendor that I talk to, they're like, oh, we'll give you 10 years on it. And I'm like, great, thanks.
Yeah.
And then last question. So I know that you talked about the regional towns maybe getting together to do, to work together for that. What about Neshoba? I mean, the whole point, as I understood it, of going to Neshoba Valley as a dispatcher was to try and reduce some of the cost to Berlin for that. But are they in any part of this? I mean, what are they doing? Do they have any, muscle they can lend on this? They just seem to be like the big gaping hole in the room of, we went to you to help us, to make us more efficient, and now we're having some serious issues.
Yeah, so 7 towns were originally signed on to Neshoba, or not originally, but they got made up to 7 towns, moving back down to 6 now. 1 town's leaving. The issue we had was when we all moved, we didn't do the regional radio system immediately. So right now our dispatchers listen to 21 radio frequencies between the 6 towns, and we're trying to reduce that. And that's where Neshoba Ann has been a tremendous asset to our district. And she is now the one spearheading what should have been spearheaded 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. So now that is starting to come to fruition. So yes, I do believe that Neshoba is going to fill a very large gap for us as long as the grants are there. And is definitely more than willing to do all the legwork for it and make it happen if the money's there. So I'm very hopeful. I mean, I'm very happy with Neshoba, and I understand their frustrations with having to listen to 21 radio frequencies when we have a hard enough time listening to 2 or 3 when we're sitting out on the road. So I definitely see us going forward with Neshoba and having them pick up a large part of the cost.
Yeah. All right. Well, you've answered all my questions from last week, so thanks, Chief Shartner.
Chris, do you have questions?
No, I think Peg had some good questions, and it was very informative.
I just a couple of follow-ups on the radio, Chief, is that it sounds like there's some time of the essence, trying to get at least the buzz gone and getting the antenna working. The existing grant money that's sitting there, the 340,000, if you had the right contractor and the right proposals and we followed our procurement policies, would you be able to use that funding if that was sort of your source at the time?
Yeah, absolutely. We can rebuild our 2 sites, and I'm not sure if you guys might not have got the slide presentation that we sent the CPC, but that actually shows color illustrations of the different phases of the project. Just replace the antennas, the filters, replace the antennas, filters at a 3rd site on the south side of town. It's all color coded and easy to read. And it shows, I can forward that off to you guys tonight.
What we might do.
But yeah, I mean, the money we have, we could rebuild the two sites we have. It's just that we need to do something more for the south side of town.
Yeah. Speaking only for me, and Margaret's here by phone and has her hand raised too, but potentially when you're back next month to talk, because you'll have more quotes by then and be closer about what the right path is when, because there is definitely some benefit waiting for a grant. There's definitely some benefits to using existing funds, and there could potentially be some other funds we could look at if that got this at least a little bit further. Because I understand the whole project to replace all the radios and all the antennas is a price tag, is a big price tag. The antennas get you only so far, but that gets you at least somewhere down the path.
Yeah, as soon as we add the third site, that's when their price tag really goes up, adding a third site.
Um,
Go ahead,
Margaret,
sorry, Scott.
sorry, Margaret, you
Oh,
want
no, Margaret, yep, forgot about her. Mhm.
Sorry, I'm not. So,
Oh, yeah, she's in Clinton.
Right, I was gonna say, Margaret, even your
Phone
cell
is
phone
icky.
is very breaking up and can barely get even a full word in.
Okay. I just wanted to mention that the repairs,
No.
We had the first part of the sentence, but probably honestly not the core one. I don't know if you want to try again in a moment or two once you have a chance to see if there's a better spot to get to. I have just one more, Chief Shartner, on my end, while we see if Margaret can find a better place for things, is that the working with Victoria. And so we've added some ARPA money to increase our hours to help with some social service pieces. It looks like you've utilized her to help with at least one particular ticket. See, that's me with my help desk system. Call this month. How is that partnership between social services and police working in the town of Berlin?
I think it's working great. We've actually used her several times. Obviously a lot of stuff with HIPAA we don't talk about.
Right.
But yeah, we usually try to use her weekly. We try to keep her up to date on things going on, potential new clients, and just pathways to move forward. It's been phenomenal. She's been fantastic, a great asset to us. It's I can't wait to get her moved up into the lobby. I just gotta see where we're at with the budget and buy her desk, and we're gonna put her in the community room, our interview room up front. That we use it, but we're definitely willing to give it up to have her front and center between police and fire every day, or at least half the week.
Yep. And then the stop signs, some of the ones you put out were not unanimously supported by residents when they were first proposed. Have you gotten feedback from those stop signs? Are there people who have concerns?
Yeah, we've gotten some feedback. Obviously, the residents that weren't pro stop signs, they came to our last meeting. Definitely, listen to them. They have some valid points, but we need a better solution to that area. Fred and I are going to look into getting some traffic trays installed. Possibly put in a request for ARPA funds to put 2 traffic trays in on Carter Street, one on Highland Street, one on Carter Street, and then maybe even eliminate the stop signs, or at least two of the 3. One has to be there, but I think all in all, I mean, they're new. People, traffic is adjusting. We're not out there writing $55 tickets for everybody that blows the signs. We're just trying to get people used to them, and it helps control the traffic in the area.
Do you want to give it another try, Margaret?
Can't go, I have 2 more.
I
I can hear them running around.
I think she's moving around trying to find a better spot. So go ahead, Peg.
So,
I'm trying to
Eric,
find a spot.
go, Margaret, go, I'll
Margaret.
wait.
No, I'm just trying to find a good spot. I'll be with you in a minute.
Okay.
No, wherever you are is good.
Yeah. Go for it, Peg.
All right. So, Chief, on that presentation, it wasn't until you got to the last page that you saw the price and then fell out of the chair. Is it possible on all the proposals that you're going to have in, could you have an itemized one where you talked about If we go with antennas, it's $20. If we go with, this plus an antenna, it's $30. It's this plus an antenna, it's $50. Just so that you can see your options, because there was a lot of detail, and truly the only cost was last page when it said total cost of program in excess of $800,000, and you're thinking, how did they get to that amount?
Yes,
Okay.
that is, I do have one, and I'll send it off. It is a couple of years old, and it will show you the list. What he gave us, he gave us as a whole. Until we actually make a decision, that price tag is not going to be concrete with any vendor. Vendor can come in at 440,000, and by the time we pull the trigger and say yes, it could be 480, it could be 410.
Yep.
It could be supply and demand and where things are at.
And the last question that I had, since Scott was talking about traffic, I know the whole point of putting the speed limit thing up in the center of town outside the garden was to gather data on
Yep.
speeds and times of day when it was worse. Do you have any of that you can share, or maybe the next time you come back that you can have a presentation on that? Because they've been up for a while.
Yeah, they've been up for a while. I'm actually going to start taking them down and bringing them into my office and plugging them into the laptop. The Bluetooth is not working between my laptop and those speed signs. Usually my battery ends up going out before I can even start collecting data. So I do plan, and that's obviously a task itself, taking the signs down and bringing them in and bringing them back out. So that is definitely my next on the list to get things done. Right now we're in the midst, I have to have all department paperwork by June 15th for a post. And we have 10 officers up for recertification this year. So, and I've already been advised by one that they are basically going to retire and not go for recertification, and they're changing career paths. So I haven't got that in writing yet, but it's just impossible. Even if the person changed their mind tomorrow, there's not enough time to get all the work done.
Okay. All right, cool. Thanks, Chief.
Welcome back, Margaret.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I found a place where you might actually be able to hear me.
Sounds good so far. Go for it. Ask your question or make your comment.
Well, what I was trying to say before is that I was at the Capital Planning Committee meeting, and the vendor did a nice job explaining all the components of the system. But he also reiterated that the repairs to the antennas are a critical need. And I think I could quote him as saying, if he could do something in the next week, it would be that, and it will make immediate improvements to radio communications. So I have encouraged Chief Shartner and Chief Clark to solicit the 3 quotes. We are going to need the 3 quotes. Even if we don't have 3 vendors that provide service for Motorola, we need to go out and try to get 3 quotes so we can get those things, repairs done.
Yes, I got 2 more vendors today that will give quotes on antennas. So so that should get us up to the 3, and I'm hoping I just have to write out a little short description so everybody knows what they're bidding on, and I hope to have that out by tomorrow afternoon.
Sounds good.
Great. Other questions for Chief Shartner?
Are you approving the stop sign tonight?
On a trial basis?
No, no, just the one
He
for
hit a new
Culver
one.
Road at Randall Road.
No, about Randall too. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this one's Coburn at Randall.
So I don't think we had any to approve, did we not?
It is in the chief's folder, but it is not specifically listed as an agenda item.
Okay.
Margaret, are we allowed to vote on it if we wanted to, or do we need to push this off to another meeting?
Yes, you could vote on it if you want to. All I would ask is for Chief Shartner to explain the request to the board before the board takes action.
Yep. So why don't we just take that now as opposed to just waiting for anything under new business? Chief, why don't you talk about what the request is, your rationale for wanting us to approve it?
Right, so heading the northerly direction on Coburn Road. When you come up to Randall Road, there's never been a stop sign at the end of the road. With the increased traffic, most people are not stopping at the stop, at the intersection and rolling right through. And of course, with traffic increasing, same reason why we put stop sign at Peach Hill Road and the yield sign 300 yards, to the right of that intersection. It's more for safety and clarification that yes, you do have to stop at the end of this road before you make a left or a right.
Any questions from Chris or Peg? Is there a motion?
Chief, did you want to do this as a trial also, or just?
No,
approve it?
no, it's covered under the Code of Massachusetts regulations. So,
Okay,
it's not a trial. It's not it's a T intersection with no stop signs at all. So,
okay, then I would make a motion to approve that particular stop sign.
I'll second it.
So when there's no other discussion, we will call for a vote. Hawkins, aye.
Keefe, aye.
Stone Eye.
Thank you very much. Thanks for catching that. With that, are we done with the chief for tonight?
For tonight.
You can always hang around. We'd love you to hang around. I'm sure we'll have questions you probably could answer, but
I'll be around. I'll be around for
at
a
least
while.
formally.
All right, I did email off the quote from one company on the radio systems. Like I said, it's 2 years old. 2 years old. That gives a list, and also I sent you the presentation that capital planning got last week.
Thank
So
you,
you
Chief.
look at that as well. Like I said, those color charts are phenomenal and really show the potential advantages of it. So.
Okay, thanks.
That's great. Yes, Margaret.
Just a question for Chief. Chief, are you also working on the capital request form?
Yes, yeah, that's why I'm going to be hanging out, listening to your meeting. I'm going to get the capital request form right now. I thought it was 40,000. It's 38,000.
It was, do it for, put the request in for 40,000.
Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, now it's for the
that
batteries
would
and the
include-
antennas.
That's for the antenna repairs. And so that would include a contingency if needed.
Okay, okay.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
All right.
I think next on the agenda then is, as best we can, TA report.
Okay, all right. I'll only pick a couple of key things. First of all, the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee, when they met last week, did discuss Berlin Auto Parts. And as the truck backups pertain to public safety, and Eric is going to be writing a letter to Berlin Auto Parts on behalf of the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee, requesting that that Berlin Auto Parts does not allow trucks to line up in a queue outside of the gates waiting for the gates to open and to not block driveways. We also, the neighbor who has expressed concerns also reached out to Building Commissioner Richard Hanks, indicating that the scrap metal business, he doesn't believe the scrap metal business is incidental anymore to the junk auto business. And so we are going to be requesting documentation from Berlin Auto Parts regarding the scrap metal business to see if it's an actual additional primary business there. We have a request from the Economic Development Committee regarding the Welcome to Berlin signs. The Economic Development Committee has made an effort to reach out to at least one local business regarding sponsorship of one of the signs. The board does not have any policy in place yet regarding donations and sponsorships, but there's an awful lot to consider with respect to sponsorship. So my hope is that I can get you a draft sponsorship policy by your June 6th meeting for you to review, and we could move forward on it rather than just do sponsorships piecemeal. The next thing I have is that is regarding the Advanced Life Support Study. I have a meeting tentatively scheduled this Friday with MRI and Chief Clark to discuss the red lines I've submitted on the ALS study draft to see if we can get some answers to a number of questions. So I will keep the board posted on that. And the last thing I have for tonight is that the Personnel Committee has been working on the leave benefits section of the updated employee policy manual. This is in part due to Dennis trying to work with Harper's Payroll to actually start tracking accruals based on DLS's comments in their technical review. So the Personnel Committee is going to be meeting this week, hopefully setting a date for a public hearing, which is required under the bylaw. And I'll notify the board of the date of that public hearing. We'll circulate the drafts to the board and all employees. And that's it for now.
Peg, Chris, any questions?
Go
I have
ahead.
one.
Go
Go ahead,
ahead.
Chris.
I was just going to ask if she had anything under correspondence that, besides what was in the folder.
Correspondence. Let's see. So I've mentioned a couple of pieces of correspondence here in my TA report.
Okay.
That is essentially it. Yeah.
Scott just went over whatever was in the folder, so I just wondered if you had anything
Okay.
to add.
No.
Okay. Go ahead, Peg.
Good, Peg.
Margaret, last week you had mentioned that you had sent that joint letter to us and Earthworks Board regarding the like-kind soil, and that you were going to reach out to town council to check
Yeah.
for their input. I was just wondering where that was. I mean, I know that your time with us is short. I'd definitely like to get that wrapped up. I haven't seen any meetings on the books for Earthworks, so I'm happy to gently nudge.
Yeah. Okay. So I did reach out to town council, and the response I got was not exactly what I wanted to hear. DEP controls the Massachusetts contingency plan, which governs all like-kind soils. And she said she doesn't believe that the Attorney General's office would uphold a bylaw prohibiting the import of like-kind soils to the town. So I have to follow up with her one more time to see if there's any other way we can get around this. But based on her response, and I followed up with her, based on 2 responses from her, it didn't appear that we were going to be able to create a bylaw prohibiting the importation. So I'm happy to follow up again with you.
But short of a prohibition, can we limit the amount on a, like, per acre or per year sort of level? And so instead of saying no, never, saying, okay, you can bring in, 100,000, pounds, I don't know how you measure this stuff, square feet, volume, 1 truckload per year, per acre, something that would allow some development to happen, allow some importation, but limit so we no longer have, hundreds of trucks on a single development over a year period.
Yeah, I can ask that question, and I did not ask that question. My question was strictly based on prohibition only, but I can follow up asking about whether or not there's some sort of amendment we could make that would limit the importation of like-kind soil.
Margaret, I'll take that email that you sent and I'll re-forward it and I'll ask them to schedule a meeting. I don't want to lose the opportunity where you're, kind of in process with this, for them to wait. So I'll reach out and ask them to giddy up. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And then Margaret, on your to-do list was a bunch of procurements. How have any of them moved forward?
I'm moving very slowly on all of those, and I do expect to do 3 of the major ones, prepare 3 of the major ones in the next week. That's going to be the roof replacement on the town office building, the air handler on the town office building, and the recreation court upgrades.
Okay. Other questions for Margaret, at least in this section? Okay, let's move on to old business then. Conservation Commission land donation. Margaret, you had updates for us on that?
Yes, I submitted all the paperwork. It's in the board's folder. Everything, all the paperwork appears to be in order based on your meeting last week with the donor of the land and Carolyn, Conservation Commission Chair. My recommendation to the board would be to approve the Conservation Commission accepting the land donation subject to any payment of legal costs or fees at the Registry of Deeds to be paid from the Conservation Commission funds.
Or via donations, right? Because the
Yeah.
seller might be willing to pay some of it, or Sudbury Valley might pay for some of it, just as long as it's not coming from like select board legal costs.
Yep, exactly. Any funds associated with the donation to be paid from conservation or from SBT if they want to pay for it. Sure.
I can tell you that I was at the conservation meeting last week and they did not vote on it. They postponed it because they did not have it on their agenda.
Oh.
And honestly, didn't want anybody to like come back and say, how dare you vote on something that I didn't know that you were talking about and I have an opinion about it. So they don't meet this week, so they meet next Wednesday. I believe that's the schedule.
Right.
Okay, thanks, Peg. I was at the Personnel Committee meeting at that time and didn't have that information.
So I'm thinking since the Conservation Commission hasn't voted on it yet, I almost want them to vote first. And so it's just something we should just push off until after they get a chance to vote on it.
Yes.
Are you okay with that, Chris?
Yes, that's fine.
Let's get on to the next item then. Permitting options under a new zoning bylaw.
So that noise zoning bylaw, here, it's to the select board while the select board is not named in the bylaw as the permitting authority, obviously it's assumed under section F of the amended bylaw with respect to activities on public property. However, the bylaw itself really does have a number of local authorities. The select board obviously has authority for activities that are happening in public ways and on town property. The Board of Health has legal responsibilities and legal authority under a couple of sections of the general laws. The building commissioner is the zoning enforcement officer. So when we talk about the permitting options, I think what the select board's going to have to focus on is the already established special event application, and that's going to need some modifications to take care of any kind of events and public gatherings on public ways. But I think the Board of Health is going to have to be notified that the noise, the decibel levels they have a responsibility under statute, and they could actually adopt local regulations governing, what the statute calls a nuisance. So the measuring of noise. So there's a couple of, this is like a multi-pronged effort where the policy is going to have to refer to all the local authorities. But permitting, we're going to have to just amend the special event application.
And that will cover, in other words, you think that we could edit that broadly enough so, soccer games and baseball games at South Common and events at 1870 Town Hall and other things are covered by this?
Yes, I think that we could do that. Anything that's happening on town property or in town ways. The special event application already covers that, so we're just going to have to broaden it to make sure that section F in the amended bylaw is addressed. So we'll just have to expand the application.
And when we do policies, we'll be able to say things like, if it is an event that has been approved by the 1870 Town Hall, that they don't have to do another permit on top of it. I'm trying to limit both the amount of work an applicant has to do and the amount of work we have to do as a town. And so it'd be odd for someone to go through all the process to rent 1870 Town Hall and then have to do another permit with the select board on top of that.
Yeah. The permitting is the board's going to have to give some consideration to permitting for multiple dates. or annual permits if specific dates are known throughout the year. So we're going to have to address that on the permit. Otherwise, it's going to be administratively overburdensome.
Right. I'm kind of hoping we can delegate some of this. In other words, if Recreation Committee has approved a soccer game, that by default is permitted without having them have to do something else on top of that to the select board. And if 1870 Town Hall has signed a rental agreement for an event, that by default is a permitted event. And that we might have to, both with Recreation, 1870 Town Hall, have them add a few more, provisos, thou shall not, into their various contracts or their places, but save those type of groups from having to do anything more than beyond they've already done for those particular groups.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, we could probably do that. I mean, Recreation knows the field schedule best, so they
Right.
absolutely should be part of this.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I think all of us, I speak for myself, I think all of us would, if we had to at select board vote on every soccer game and every baseball game and every softball game, we would meet twice a week and do nothing but approve permits. And so, and we need more people in police and fire and inspections just to do their parts of it. So I still think as we go through this, I think we're going to try to find a way to offload to existing approving authorities, things that already have processes in place.
Yep. Yeah.
And again, we just might have to tell Recreation, make sure your contract says the events have to be done by 9 p.m. or something along those lines. I still think we're lacking sort of a process that gets us to this being formally edited. And so we'll have to think more about that.
Mm-hmm. We had started an entertainment license policy last fall, but that ended up being really that ended up being a very long draft. I think it could be simplified, but I do think we have a starting point.
Okay. And we still don't have like an ETA about when like the Attorney General is even going to approve our town meeting stuff. It's likely it's still the fall before we get any of that, correct?
It's going to be at least 3 months from now. Yep. So at least August, late August.
We ready to move on to the next item? Any more comments people want to make?
No, I'll just be curious to see what the policy looks like.
Yeah. TA search updates.
I don't have any new updates except that NRI was in. They conducted interviews of local stakeholders. They were supposed to make calls to some other local officials. And again, the deadline for resumes is June 6th, and I have not gotten an update on number of resumes they've received or anything. But they are still moving on it.
I did. I had my interview, and one of the things I asked him about was, how appealing of a job is it out there? Because there's a lot of other TA openings and other things. And he thought one of the things that Berlin had going for it actually was the three of us as select board members, both being very different people, but also being able to like navigate our way through things. And so he says there's some towns are looking for TAs that have like 2 openings on their 3-person select boards. And that means you have no idea where the direction the town is going or stability and leadership. So it was nice to hear that we probably have a job that is at least appealing to enough people that we hopefully will find a good candidate. Any other questions on TA search update?
No?
Great. Then, hey, TA, is there any notices of anticipated appointments?
Not tonight.
And then we will move on. Peg, I think we're up to you. 1870 Town Hall septic updates. What do you know about 1950 septic systems?
Oh, well, you know what? I tabled that discussion because the point of my going to Board of Health was to come away with a list of vendors and next steps. And to me, this whole agreement that was settled in, started in 1959, that's separate. So where we are with that, they provided a list of vendors. Margaret, I probably should type this up and give it to you for that they've dealt with in the past. But I explained to them that the path needs to be to get there, that obviously need to write like a problem statement, what we want, whatever vendor appears on that list to come in and try and solve, or at least give us information on it. So once that is written, it's going to be approved by the Board of Health. And then when I get that letter, I've got to give it to Margaret so she can use that and do her magical procurement stuff and send it out to people to ask for bids. And then once we get an idea of costs, I get to go visit the lovely CPC committee with paperwork in hand to see if they would approve that amount from ARPA funding, and then come back to you guys to get your approval on it for ARPA funding. And then we can let the vendor come in, whoever that may be, and give us options A, B, C, D, and I don't know. And as I explained to the board, I said they may come back and say it's $20. They may come back and say it's $40. They may come back and say it's $1.6 million. So the result may be cost prohibitive, but you know what? This is just an issue that has been kicked around and everyone's like, oh, we should be doing something about it for the past 40 years. And here we have an opportunity to use money to do it. So I reached out to Bill Brookings today to try and get that started, because there is just a boatload of paperwork out there and letters and, legal documents from Franny Burke, rest his soul on that, and other information from the Board of Health. And I even saw something from Eloise dated multiple years ago. So I just want to make sure that the scope is indeed the scope that is needed. And if we're going to insert dollar amount here for a vendor to come in and do some type of engineering, structural architecture, fact-finding mission, that it needs to be as close to exact. So it's going to move slowly, but I'll just nip at everybody's heels to make sure that it keeps moving along.
Peg, I think that process sounds like a decent process. Just trying to think, potentially you're asking, you might be asking for sort of then two different pools of money. One, potentially for the engineering to come up with the bigger stuff, which is likely small money compared to here's the money for the solution, which is likely bigger money, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of, Scott, that it's going to be, I don't know, again, I'm guessing $40,000 for an engineering study to come in and say, well, if you do this with the neighboring house, it's this. And then if you do this, but you need more land, it's this.
Right.
I don't know, but I don't think that's going to be a cheap response, but so.
But it's also probably likely cheaper than building whatever it is we're going to ultimately want to do, because as I think all of us agree, is that there's at least a significant benefit to being able to have a commercial kitchen in 1870 Town Hall. Now, is it as you point out, if it is a $5 million to build a septic system, which it won't be, but clearly we go, well, the commercial kitchen's not that much. But if it said, hey, for $5,000 you can do this, we're like, of course a commercial kitchen is worth $5,000. So, or at least the ability to build a commercial kitchen, because this is just the septic system that allows us to do that second part.
Scott, that's just, and I think you have to, kind of like go back maybe a couple years in time or 10 years in time. How often was the town hall used for functions? And if you can look at the revenue that potentially it generated, and, a new system costs 50, but the town brought in 40, spending 10, there's just so many, so many variables. And unfortunately, the past 2 years, we're going to have squat for data. For use of that. So we're just going to have to go back in time and guess.
Well, and there's other, as Victoria's pointed out, there's other benefits that are not necessarily revenue producing for 1870 Town Hall. If the town actually had a commercial kitchen, when it came to the benefits to the Council of Aging. And I'm sure there are a few other little things like that we're just not even aware of, that people haven't asked because they just know they don't have it.
Correct.
Were you about to say something, Margaret?
Yes. Oh,
Go
my
for it.
hand is raised, but what I wanted to say was it might be worth me reaching out to Evan Carloni. He was the one that designed the library septic system, and I'd like to just kind of maybe we could run a few questions by him first, and or see if he might be interested in assisting us with a design.
Margaret, do you know if he by chance is Innovative Septic Design?
Yes, he is.
Guess what? He's on the list.
He's on the list.
And he's a Berlin resident, if I remember correctly, too.
He's on the list. Yeah, that's just it. The folks that they gave me, and in fact, one of them, Dillis and Roy, I know that they're working on Flat Penny Septic as well. So from what I was told, these folks have a lot of familiarity with Berlin, which is nice. You don't have to go back and do the history dances. And I know that Bill Brookings just has a boatload of maps and stuff that is basically, he's just ready to go
Mhm.
and hand it over.
Yeah.
Margaret, I'll email you these. I'll write them up and I'll get them to you tonight.
All right, sounds good. I appreciate that. And let's reach out to Evan and get his thoughts on this.
Okay.
So Peg, did you end up only having the one meeting with the Board of Health?
Yeah.
Okay, you didn't end up having to meet with First Parish and all those other people?
I had emailed First Parish and told them what I was doing, and I asked for a representative to come and kind of support, chime in, and unfortunately, that representative did not show. So it was just me. And then, as I said, Barry started to go down the path of, well, in 19th, and I'm like, nope, let's just stop that right now. Table it, do another meeting. We're going forward with this. So yeah, Chris, it's only been the initial touch base, help me put together a problem statement.
Well, it's probably better that way to get the information, that you're looking for first.
Correct.
Because you
Right.
may not have to deal with the rest of it.
And some of the things that I learned in some of the emails really is that First Parish, although the septic system is on their land, they're not a user of that system, which I think when we first started this, we thought they were also a user of the system. And so their involvement is at least a little bit less than it would be if they were an additional user.
Right, but as I explained, I wanted to invite First Parish from the
Yep.
beginning because I didn't want to get 3/4 of the way into it and then all of a sudden go "Ugh," and back
Right,
up
they're
and
like,
lose
no way
time.
you're digging up our front land. And like, oh, because obviously if we replace it, you're gonna have to dig up the land of where
Correct.
the existing one is at the very least, never mind where it ultimately might go.
Yep, so no,
Um,
this one is a definite, I'll keep you posted.
Nope, just let us know when you want to put it back on as an agenda item.
Will do.
I
Yep.
can always put plugs out there.
Okay.
I think we're ready for new business then. The first one is the fiscal year 23 boards and committees reappointment. There is a spreadsheet in the folder. One of the reasons why we're doing this tonight and not next week is I actually have tried to clear next week's agenda so we do not have a meeting next week. There's a holiday, the staff wouldn't have a lot of time after the meeting before the following meeting. And so there's a couple things I've moved forward and a couple things I've pushed back. And so it could be that we handle some of these tonight and a few people officially for 4 days might not be formally appointed, but that's because they haven't gotten back to us yet. And then Mary, if I understand it, anybody in green on this has confirmed they would like to re-up. Is that correct?
Green is good. Red are people who don't want to re-up, and the yellows are the people who haven't answered. But historically, you never get, like, for example, there is no Earthwork Advisory Committee right now because none of them have, or Tom Bradley on personnel because he hasn't responded yet, because they just haven't responded yet. So what the board typically does is defaults to reappoint everybody unless they're affirm they don't want to be renewed.
So yellow or red, yellow or green.
Are good to go.
Okay,
I can tell you with Tom Bradley for personnel that he got up out of the personnel meeting on Wednesday and went down to Eloise to re-oath last week. So
That's premature. Only I think that, what happens is they're reappointed first, but there's no harm, I suppose. So that shows an intent we want to renew.
yep. So would you
Um,
like a motion, Scott?
I would. That leaves the gray ones that still are vacant and other stuff. But yes, if we would vote, yes, a motion for the greens and yellows.
I'll make a motion to approve the greens and the yellows for reappointments.
I will second and I will annoy Earthwork again. Mhm.
Oh, what about Earthwork?
Then I will annoy them since I've already sent a letter out to ask them to have a meeting. I'll gently nudge them to respond. Mhm.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And then we can
Hey.
obviously, yes, Margaret?
I was just going to say, Peg, if you want to propose a couple of specific dates, or I can go over a couple of dates, and I can propose a couple of specific dates with the Earthworks Advisory Committee. Maybe we can get them to agree on a date and time.
Okay, I sent the message out, so Margaret, it's probably in your email box of about 5 minutes ago. So if you just want to
Okay.
tally on it and throw in some dates, that would be awesome.
Okay.
So motion was to.
Motion,
approve
and a second.
reappointment.
Any more discussion on the list of appointments? Then we shall vote. Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
Stone's looking, but I'll say aye.
Thank you. And that there's a bunch of vacancies, a couple of committees that seem to be lacking some quorum. I don't know how we can, as a group, but I encourage folks listening to, I think this is on our website somewhere, but where some of the vacancies are. There's a lot of opportunities to volunteer in town. Some of these do not take a huge volume of town or a giant line of expertise within the lines. Everyone at some point, everybody was new to the committee and didn't know a ton. It's just, in this town, you know, we get a lot done with our volunteers, and we can always use a few more. And that's not always the same 8 people going to like 9 different committees. And so if you're on a committee that's looking for them, start reaching out to neighbors and friends and see if we can expand the pie, so to speak.
Mary, sorry, I missed me on the list. If you could flip me to green, that's fine, on line 144. My bad, I totally missed me.
You missed you?
Yeah, I'm up there for a sexual harassment officer, a
Gotcha.
co-seat with Dennis and I.
Okay, so Dennis hasn't responded. You're good. Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Next item under new business, approve the 422 subsidized housing inventory sent by the Mass Department of Housing and Community Development, and to approve edits to the subsidized housing inventory by 6/10/22 deadline. I actually didn't see the inventory in our packets, though.
Scott, the inventory is unchanged. I think Mary had circulated that. The inventory is unchanged. It's 16.99%. There are no changes from last year's inventory. It does not yet include the units, the subsidized housing units at homes at Highland Ridge or the Capes of Berlin. Those will be added once the occupancy permits are issued and the paperwork is filed on those.
And it's still the
I-
2010 census, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
I should mention that I spoke with Tim Wheeler. He did not have any issues. He felt that the SHI was accurate.
So I
All
would make,
feedback has been going to the selectman's office, and there has been no negative feedback about accepting that current SHI.
okay. So I would make a motion to approve the 4/22/2022 subsidized housing inventory.
Lots of 2s in that.
I will second.
Great. If there's no more discussion, then Hawkins, aye.
Keith, aye.
Stone aye.
And that passes. We're up to boards, questions, comments, and liaison updates. I think, Chris, you go first.
I don't have anything this week.
Peg?
So sorry about that. Concom, lovely visit with them last week. They are busy. Let's see, Linden Street parking lot, they're waiting on the posts for the fence. They have the lumber, it's been delivered. Fred took it off their hands. They've got like the bolts and screws. They need to coordinate a time with Highway once the posts are available. Highland Ridge, there was a discussion what was needed from Sudbury Valley Trust on what needs to happen to the land if Sudbury Valley Trust takes it over, and all the existing agreements that Berlin has, where's that? So they're planning a site walk visit with SVT. The parcel on your land, you know about it, and it's not on their agenda for their next meeting. So I just emailed Carolyn and said, please put it on. We'll follow your vote. At our next meeting, the Flat Penny, they're working with Dillis and Roy regarding the septic. So they have a DEP number So they're working on some plans for that. So hopefully that will move along quickly, and then what to do when they dig up the parking lot and where to put all that stuff, because they can't keep it there on site. There's just no spot for it. So more on that. And there was a request from, somebody, Heather Simpson, to ask to have the picnic table down near the town pond removed. I guess it's rather rickety, and it's kind of like the old seesaws at Berlin Memorial. You sit on one side, the other side goes up, and if, the one on one side is heavier, then the other one person gets bonged off. So I reached out to Fred, and it's either been removed or it will be removed, and they are putting the finishing touches on a new 6-foot picnic table down near the town pond. And no wreck, no earthworks, no energy. I'm done.
Speaking of,
Since you started down the path, do you want to, and there's a lot of interest in what's going on at the old Flat Penny site, do you want to give what you know is going in there? I know some stuff, but
well, it
Yeah, but
sounds-
is it anything official? Or is it just hearsay?
I think it's official enough. I can tell you what they're planning on putting in there, whether or not it ultimately makes it past the finish line, because as you pointed out, there's septic stuff to go, and there's a few other things to work about, but there is, it is someone who's proposing or trying to put a Mexican restaurant into the place. They have not gotten through all the permitting. They've not started even some of the permitting stuff because they're still looking at some of the other pieces like septic. So this is a long path. This is not something that's going to be like open this summer, as far as I know. When I inquired about it, because I saw the action down there and asked why there's nothing in the building permits log, and that's because they're working to figure out what the right permits are and the timing of those, and they've not started the permitting process to get a business actually going, but that is who they are talking to.
and they
And
have
Margaret-
done some painting.
Right.
I don't know whether inside, but outside, of course.
Margaret, you know anything different? Am I speaking too far out of turn?
I don't know. I don't know anything different. I can go to the building commissioner and find out from the source.
No, he was the one who actually responded when I asked about it, saying that's who they're chatting with, is someone who's looking at doing that, but they still haven't started the permitting process for a business, nor really got in their building permits ready. They're doing things that don't require building permits first, and doing things like, contracting and figuring out what other quotes are for septic systems, like we're sort of doing at 1870 Town Hall.
Yeah, those are some big endeavors, the septic and welder.
So Peg, when you were talking about the picnic table down at the pond, I just wanted to let Margaret and yourselves know that I had a call from a resident who was wondering whether the fencing around the tennis courts was going to go back up again, because she was concerned when she saw that they're playing basketball and the ball went in the water.
Just remember, the water is only waist deep.
That's right.
So
I forgot about that. I could have told her that.
that's right.
She may know that, though. She's a lifelong resident.
Yeah.
So
I don't have anything else to add. Are there other comments or questions for the night?
no,
We do not have an executive session scheduled. We are planning to cancel next week's meeting. I probably won't remove it or have it ask Mary or Margaret to remove it from posting until Thursday, just in case something comes up, because it's easy to remove it at the last minute than it is to add it at the last minute. But the current plans are not to have a meeting next week.
next Tuesday it would be.
Next
right?
Tuesday, correct. Yep,
Right.
because Monday is the holiday.
Right.
And there is no parade in the center of town.
There is no parade because I've been curious. Is there anything going on? So are they doing the speeches at Old Cemetery or the ice cream socials or anything else like that?
I've heard
Okay.
there's like a small thing, but haven't seen any time or place. I would assume it's probably at the cemetery in the center of town, but
I think they want to have a crowd. They're trying to do something with just their membership.
Okay. I know that the Boy Scouts are doing their pancake fundraiser on Monday.
Oh, okay, good. So would you like a motion to adjourn?
Sure.
So moved.
And seconded.
Let's see, let's have a vote then. Hawkins, aye.
Key-fi.
Stone Eye.
Everyone have a fun and safe Memorial Day weekend, and we will probably see you in 2 weeks.